Good morning. This is the beginning of Chapter 2 video. The first part of the chapter talks about nature versus nurture. Nature is what you are born with. The genes and genetics you get from your mom and your dad is nature. Nurture is the environment that surrounds you after birth. It can also be the surroundings around you before birth. Say if mom and dad smoke or if there's drug use, then that contributes to your nature. Okay, so the nurturing environment or non-nurturing environment can affect you way before birth. Okay, after birth, the environment is even a greater factor. If it's a positive environment, then the child is going to be able to grow and to learn at a more positive rate. If it's a negative environment, then that child is going to have many obstacles in their way, not only with physical and emotional and social and cognitive areas, because nurture affects all of that. Even if a child is born with everything they need, if the environment does not help that child and it hinders that child, it will make them not grow in those areas. There's a lot of scientific data and research that shows this over time. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about, I'm reading off a PowerPoint as I do this, is in the chapter it talks about the development of the brain. Brain development is very important when we're interacting and working with children. We want to make sure that we provide the most positive environment for that child so that brain can grow to be all it can be. There's data that we have learned over the years that by age 3, a child's brain is almost completely complete. Okay, that's just amazing how much a child learns in such a small amount of time. Children learn more in the first 3 years of life than they ever will for the rest of their life. We're just adding to. When you think about it, we talk about physical development, cognitive development, emotional development. You learn about facts and materials, how to get along with others. You learn about feelings. All of these things, and your body is growing. You have the most growth and development those first 3 years in such a very, very short amount of time than you do the rest of your life. Now, as a brain grows, if there's negative circumstances that affect the brain will automatically what we call prune itself. We see this a lot in older adults. As we get older, the brain prunes itself more, and the term dementia may come to hand, where you may have grandparents that don't know who you are anymore, or they forget things. As we get older, our brain naturally gets rid of the information that we don't use. Okay, and sometimes it gets rid of the information we do use because of different types of diseases like dementia. But in early childhood, in infancy, in toddlerhood, we don't want the brain to be pruning anything. We want to keep all those billions of neurons and synapses and dendrites that create our brain. Every time we learn something new, we build a new connection in our brain, which is very important. Now, if a child is in a negative environment and is being neglected or abused, those connections can be severed. Okay, and they never ever grow back to the way they were. Once a connection is severed due to child abuse and neglect, that's it. There's nothing we can do about that. Now, we do have early intervention services that we have in place in child care facilities for children with special needs that can help the brain can go around those connections, but the one that was right here in the middle will never ever have another connector to it. The brain will grow around those synapses and neurons, but we won't ever have the original. We'll have the ones that go around and reroute, but never the one that we originally had. That's why it's so important. So important to make sure that we do everything we can positively for the children in our child care environments and in our homes. The next thing I want to talk to you about, and that's called brain plasticity. I forgot to say that. Brain plasticity is the ability to rework and to grow around those areas. Our brain can grow and learn, but we just can't get back what we lose, if that makes sense. Now, as the body grows, that's called physical growth, and that is one of our main domain areas. Is physical, and I talked about fine motor development or large motor development of our muscles. And as we grow, we go through different ages and stages of growth. Okay, everybody grows up. Okay, but everybody grows up at a different rate of time. But we hit those same stages of development maybe a few months before or a few months after the people that are around us, depending on what stage our body is in, okay, or how our body is growing. If we're receiving all the nutrients and the positive environment that we have, then our body is going to grow at a more normal rate. If we're lacking nutrients and a positive environment, then our body is going to grow at a slower rate, okay? We know that because we see brain scans of children's brains that are abused and brain scans of normal children. The brains of abused children are smaller than the brains of normal developing children, and they always will be. Once a child is neglected, they never get their brain will always be smaller in size than that of a normal developing child that has not been abused. Something to think about. It's very important. Now, when we look at physical growth, we also have to think about hearing and vision. Hearing and vision are something that we test for in childhood to make sure a child's eyesight and their hearing are developing the way that it needs to be. This is something also they do when children are born. As soon as children are born, they check eyesight and hearing, doing different tests with them. It's also very important that children get checkups. If you notice a child is not hearing, or if you make a loud noise and that child does not jump or startle, then there is something that is wrong. That would be a big clue that that baby may need to have their hearing checked, because ear infections and different things can cause damage to the ear at different times during a child's growth. So it's very important to pay attention to. Also, if you're seeing if a child will track your finger back and forth across, if you're holding it in front of a child and they don't, say I move it here and my head doesn't move over there, that would be something to worry about. Okay, in the development of the eyesight, the child may not be able to see that far. They may be nearsighted or farsighted, or they may even have something that's more in depth than that is happening with them. And so, making sure that you're aware of these things and the development of infancy is very important.